Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Lisa, and in today's video, I want to share with you guys how to travel without planning. And I know that title sounds so ironic because I'm teaching you how to not plan, which is essentially kind of a plan. But I really wanted to make this video because recently I posted a TikTok telling you guys that I am going on a road trip from Vancouver, BC all the way to San Francisco with essentially no plan and booking accommodations either the day of or the night before. And a lot of you were concerned. I feel like some of the people in the comments were calling me not just type B, but like type C and E and etc. This is not my first time, so I'm very comfortable. And I want to share with you because I feel like it's so liberating when you do this. And I'm gonna teach you how to do this in a safe way as well. And I'm gonna go through my personal tips. Obviously, the first and foremost priority is to be safe. And I do this safely, at least I think so. So hopefully these tips will help. And if you guys have any more questions, make sure you leave it down in the comment section down below. And also to end off the video, for those of you who are following me, I do wanna give you guys sort of like a little life update. So stick around and listen to what's been going on in my life as well. Okay, so before I officially go into my tips and tricks, let me tell you guys the background story of how I started doing this to kind of give you guys my credentials, if you will. Basically, I didn't always just travel with absolutely no plan. I sort of stumbled upon it, and the first time that this happened to me honestly did freak me out. You can sort of watch my previous vlogs where I did this when I went to Sicily with my friend Bo, but essentially that whole summer, I was taught this very important lesson that a lot of things change and you have to learn to adapt. That was one of the things that sort of allowed me to kind of see the world with a little bit more openness. Prior to going to Sicily, something already happened. I arrived to Amsterdam and I had tested negative for COVID. This was like the first year you're allowed to travel. So I tested negative for COVID before going to Amsterdam. Once I arrived, I was staying with my friend and she was going to work. So she asked me to rapid test. I tested and I became positive. So instead of staying with my friend for the week in her house as it was supposed to be, I ended up staying in a hotel that I had to pay for to quarantine basically for a week. And that already taught me to learn how to book hotels the day of because I needed to quarantine and basically figure it out. So that was sort of my first exposure. Then right after Amsterdam, I had a flight booked to Sicily to meet up with my friend Bo. And initially the two of us were supposed to stay with his friend Marco, who is also in the vlog, but Marco lives with his mom. And I think at the time, because of COVID and everything, she wasn't comfortable with so many different strangers. And she was obviously comfortable with her son Marco and Marco's like best friend Bo. And I was a girl Marco and his mom have never met. So they were very uncomfortable with me staying. But initially, prior to going, I was under the impression that I was staying with them. So when I arrived in Sicily, like I'm not even joking you, landed in Sicily, I called up my friend Bo and I was like, hey, where am I going? Like I'm at the airport now. I need to like grab a taxi to go somewhere. And he's like, okay, so bad news, like they don't want you to stay at their place. And I was like, honestly, I totally understand. But in that moment, I did really freak out. Where am I gonna stay? And Sicily was a little bit harder. It was August and hotels were a little bit more booked up at the time. But even then I was able to find a hotel and it was the most beautiful hotel. I'm gonna leave you guys some pictures over here. I did like photo shoots by myself with my little self timer at this hotel. It turned out to be wonderful. On the exact same trip, again, this happened to me again. I swear I am very much a believer in the universe. Like the stuff that is supposed to happen to you happens to you. And I think that trip with those three incidences really taught me how to travel this way and be comfortable and not be so fearful with the world. So the third incident was me and Bo, we actually went to explore at a different city. It was in Cefalu. It literally is in the title of the vlog. It was like, we don't have a place to stay, but basically we arrived to Cefalu. We found out that the hotel that we did book the night before was actually for the following night and not the night that we arrived. So once again, on the day of, we were homeless and it taught me to once again think on my feet and book. So I would say that that trip really trained my brain to get over the fear of not having an accommodation in a foreign country the day of. And I know that a lot of you are probably gonna say like, oh, well, this is such a privileged mindset. The hotels are probably so expensive. There's this huge misconception that hotels are more expensive, but that is not true, everyone. In the later part of the video, I really wanna show you guys the prices that I book for hotels. And because a lot of these hotels, unless if it's their last room, even if it's their last room, most of the time when you book on the day of, the prices are actually not that bad. In fact, a lot of the times it's better than some of the other dates that I have seen. Obviously, this is not the same for every single hotel, but I'm just saying that for the 3 years that I have been doing this, on average, hotel prices are not more expensive. One last incident that really happened to me that really enforced why I should travel this way was because in the same year, so we went from Amsterdam to Sicily. This is still the same summer. I went to Ibiza to meet up with my friend Helen, same friend. The same thing happened to me again, in a sense that after meeting up with Helen, I had planned to go back to Canada as well. I booked my flight to go back to Canada and I was supposed to transfer through London, England. The restrictions on COVID at the time for UK and for Canada was very different, and I was told under my research to follow the protocol of your final destination. So I did that, but when I showed up, they were like, you're supposed to show up with 2 like proof of rapid test or something like that. But in Canada, it was like, if you had tested positive for the last 90 days, you don't need a most recent rapid test. So at the airport, I actually got denied. So immediately I once again didn't have a hotel, and I also didn't have a flight home. I'm telling you, that entire summer was God training me to be a more flexible person and learning to live more freely, I guess, and become a more free-spirited person. I have not always been a free-spirited person to the extent that I am now. I was trained to be this way by the universe. So after leaving the airport, once again, had to figure out accommodations, had to figure out my flights, and it taught me to take it easy. I decided to extend my stay for another week. During the week, I was booking once again hotels the day of or the night before. And the one time I booked early, which was like 2 nights before, I stayed at a hotel and met up with 3 girls from the UK that I love. They're such great vibes. I became really good friends with them, and they were just like, Lisa, like, you should come to this party. You should come join us for these plans. And then unfortunately, because I had already booked the hotel and it was in a different city in Ibiza, I had to leave that city and I couldn't join them. So once again, it kind of showed me that, you know, when you live in the moment, you have more flexibility. I just feel like a lot of times when you go on vacation, a lot of the times you'll meet people and they'll give you better recommendations. But if you're already so stuck on what you came here with and planned, I feel like a lot of the times you go home and you're like, I really wish that my plans weren't that rigid, so I could have been more flexible and do things that come up. And I don't know about you guys, but also for me, not even traveling, but just like from a day-to-day perspective, I like being able to back out of certain plans, because sometimes in the moment you wake up and you don't want to do it anymore. Who has been on a Pilates waitlist class and you canceled on the waitlist, or you registered for Pilates and you got in the class and you're like, thank God their cancellation policy, I can still cancel and not be penalized. It's like, if you can't even commit to a Pilates class that you booked a week before, why are you trying to commit yourself to a travel plan, you know? So I feel like a lot of the times, I mean, obviously it is a very extreme comparison, but that's sort of the type of comparison that I've arrived at after doing this for a few years. And this is why I travel the way I do. Okay, now that you guys understand my background with how I have become the way I have become, I'm gonna go through exactly how I planned for this road trip. The reason why I'm a little hesitant to be like, do this, do that, and I just want to tell it from my perspective is because obviously I want you guys to take what you will and what is comfortable to you. If this is your first time and you haven't gone through what I said about, you know, being trained to have this mentality, I can see why you might not be comfortable with doing everything the way I do it. But I do think that a lot of these tips will come in handy. I knew that I was going to leave on Saturday for the road trip, and I needed to be in Fremont by Tuesday for dinner with my my best friend and her boyfriend, Michelle, because they were hosting me in Fremont for a few days. The first thing that I did was I actually went on ChatGPT and I inserted my prompt. I am driving from Vancouver, BC to Fremont, and I'm leaving on Saturday around 1 p.m. and I would like to arrive to Fremont on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Please give me the appropriate stops for each night. And because I have my EV car, I said, I am a solo female traveler. Please give me stops along the way that are safe and also hotels that offer free EV charging. I also asked for some popular spots that I can stop at, and it basically populated this entire road trip for me within 2 seconds. So when I was reading just very briefly on Friday, because even though I was leaving the next day, I was reading very briefly, it gave me 2 pieces of information. Number one, it gave me approximately how much I need to drive per day. So it ended up being around like 6 hours a day. I also specified that it wasn't a drive directly from Vancouver down to Fremont through the main highway. I'm gonna leave another screenshot here, but I do cover it on Instagram. Basically, my journey was from Vancouver and I wanted specifically to drive along the Oregon coast because I heard it was beautiful. So I knew it was going to be a longer drive, but that was kind of like my requirement because I didn't want to just be on this boring ass highway for like 12 plus hours. This is why it's really important. Use ChatGPT and basically insert the things you do know. So for me, I don't know a lot of people that have done a drive along the Oregon coast and have an EV car. So I feel like, you know, the things I do know, like I heard, for example, and I kind of talked about this a little bit, Cannon Beach is really beautiful. So I initially, instead of Portland, that was going to be my very first stop. It was also approximately 6 to 7 hours. But when I was searching for hotels, I think either the night before or the day of, they ran out of the hotels in the one I wanted to stay at because I didn't want to just stay in a dingy motel. Like I think a lot of people in the Instagram comments misunderstood and think that I'm just like literally driving and when I see a motel, I'm just gonna pull over. Like absolutely not. I couldn't even stay in a motel because a lot of motels don't have EV charging. So once again, use ChatGPT, insert your requirements. If you have a deadline in which you need to be somewhere, sites that you know you want to see, and also just, you can even insert, for example, I only want to drive 5 hours a day. You would be shocked at the prompt that I got from ChatGPT. I'm literally going to give you the responses that I was given. Obviously, I didn't follow everything, but it gave me a general guideline. The other reason I like to do this is because I feel like I don't like to be forced to a certain itinerary, especially when it comes to my sleep. So a little background, basically on Saturday morning, I slept until I was done sleeping. So I woke up at around 10 a.m. I think I was trying to leave for 12, but my mom made me a very great lunch. And also I had some last minute packing. I didn't even get to leave until 1:30. Honestly, I think the whole aspect of this part is just being flexible with your plan and being okay with arriving late. Once again, I feel like you would be in a bigger time crunch if you had a list of things you are adamant on seeing. For me, I knew that my drive from Vancouver, BC to Portland, there was nothing I really wanted to see. So I didn't really care what time I left. And then so I think I prioritized my sleep a lot more than some of the sites along the way. When you are flexible with it, you are able to kind of just roll along with the plan as you wish. My tip when it comes to saving money with hotels, so I actually stumbled upon this accidentally. So essentially, after my stay in Portland, I wanted to go directly to the Oregon coast. And according to ChatGPT, a really safe city for me to stay would be one called Florence. And the one with an EV charger would be a hotel called Driftwood. Essentially, I went on hotels.com. And by the way, I really recommend hotels.com. This is not an ad at all. I've just genuinely been a hotels.com user for so many years. And one of the reasons why is because when you buy 10 nights, you get one for free. And the value of the free night is the average of all the nights that you spent in the previous 10 nights. So if you are a high spender and every hotel you stay at is $500, and you get a free $500 night for your 11th night. And then vice versa, if you are spending not a lot of money, like $100, then you get a free $100 value. And also obviously, like like if you end up spending $200, it would just be like $100 off, whatever the average is. And because I always book through hotels.com, after so many years, I have become, I think, like a gold member or something. And you would be surprised at the perks that you get from hotel.com. For example, you get early check-in, late checkout when it's available, but it's more available than just a regular person. They actually try to promise it as much as they can, especially like really early check-in and really late checkout. The second thing is sometimes they offer you a bottle of wine. Like I've gone to hotels where there's already a bottle of wine on the bed because it's like part of the hotels.com exclusive. The other reason, and this is an actual important tip, especially if you're watching this as a solo female traveler, do not book Airbnbs if you are by yourself. And I'm not against Airbnbs at all, but when I am a solo female traveler, I'm team hotel all the way. I'm not even team motel. Like I said, I don't want to open the door and it's like to the wild. I like 2 levels of security. I feel like hotels are great because you walk in, there's usually like a front desk concierge person. Then you have the elevator. Typically, not all, but typically the elevator, you also need to, you know, put your card in to get to your floor. That's another added level of security. And then you finally get to your room. The reason I don't choose Airbnbs when I'm a solo female traveler is because I have heard horror stories, for example, cameras in outlets and stuff, and also just like the sketchy people not being like randos, but being the host themselves. That being said, I'm not saying that Airbnb isn't great. I actually use it for like huge group trips all the time and stuff. But when I'm a solo female traveler, I try to stay with hotels as much as possible. I also always bring with me a deadlock that I bought off Amazon. I'm gonna leave you guys the link. This is so important because when you are in a room by yourself, some hotels don't come with a deadlock, and the ones that don't, it's okay. You have your own deadlock, because at the end of the day, the thing you're protecting from isn't like a robbery. It's literally for yourself. Like you don't want someone to come in and harm you. So essentially, according to ChatGPT, this was a very highly rated hotel for me to stay at with an EV charger. So I called the hotel to confirm. You always want to call to confirm anything that is actually mandatory for you, because I just have trust issues. A lot of the times Google or, you know, even these hotel pages, sometimes they have the wrong information. So since EV charging was an actual essential part of my journey, I couldn't just trust everything I was reading. I needed to do my due diligence. I called the hotel and I asked them, you know, do you guys have an EV charger? And he's like, yes. And I was like, perfect, I'm gonna book with you right now. And then the guy was like, wait, hold on. He's like, where are you booking? And I told him hotels.com, and he's like, why don't you book with me? I'll give you a good rate. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I already am a member and I get a really fat discount already. And I told him how much I was paying. And because I think they're really trying to save on the third-party fees, he's like, I'll honor it, I'll make it better. So I ended up booking that hotel the day of for really, really, really cheap. The tip that I'm trying to say to you is that if there's a hotel that you find through booking.com, hotels.com that become available, always call them and just be like, hey, I'm gonna book right now, and I just want to know if I book through you directly and, you know, kind of like cancel out this third-party messenger, would you give me a better rate? And 90% of the time they will say yes. I have done this also in Ibiza, but like that's not from me calling ahead. That's from me staying in the hotel and being like, I would be down to stay another night. And I would go downstairs and I'm like, I can book through hotels.com or I can book through you. And they would always in person be like, yeah, just book through us. And it's always cheaper. That is sort of my tip. You can use these third-party apps as your research tool, but then in the end, you can call the hotel to see if they'll give you a much better rate. And typically they do. Also, in honor of being right, because I love being right, I decided to investigate and show up with receipts, and it's not more expensive booking on the day of or the night before compared to booking in advance. So I'll give you some examples right here, right now. Starting with the last hotel that I stayed at. So I stayed at the Bear River Casino, and it was a one king bed suite, and I booked for Monday night to Tuesday night. On Monday night, I booked this literally on the day of. My room was $172 Canadian plus all the taxes and fees. Even on the same account, I'm using still hotels.com, you know, right? Gotta keep the control, right? So I'm not like using a different platform or whatever. I'm searching it up a month later for March 24th to 25th, also on a Monday to Tuesday. I try to keep everything the same as much as possible. It is $183 plus taxes and tip. Like basically $10 cheaper that I booked, and I booked on the night of, okay? Next one, just in case you thought that was a fluke, okay? No. Next one, are we ready? So the first hotel that I stayed at was the Royal Sonesta, and I booked this the night before because like I said, I knew that Cannon Beach wasn't gonna pan out. So I booked the night before, and because I was staying on Saturday to Sunday, I also did a month later for Saturday to Sunday, and I paid $180 for a deluxe suite, 1 bedroom with 2 queen beds, okay, because I upgraded. The price here, even with my member pricing, I'm gonna include all these screenshots here. Even with my member pricing, $205. And I booked the night before. So I need people to stop thinking that it's more expensive. It's not, okay? Unless if it's August in Europe, it's probably not. And the thing about August in Europe, it's not even about the price. It's about actually not having a home. But even then, I was in Sicily and still figured it out, even though it was like super high season. So I'm still saying, obviously, be smart about this. Like I was going to Portland, Oregon in the dead of January. Like nobody's going there right now. So like obviously use a little bit of your common sense. Like if you're going to Greece in July, like you probably don't want to be doing this. But if you were kind of like planning this trip the way I'm planning it, and you're going to these like random ass places, like the Bear River Casino, it's in this place called Loletta. I don't even know how to pronounce it because I've never heard of it. And same with like Florence, Oregon. I've only heard of Florence, Italy. Obviously, the disclaimer is use your common sense and don't come back and comment on this video and be like, oh my God, I did this in Sicily in August. Like how come it didn't work out? It's like, okay, well, you know, also just FYI, this year, 2025 is a Jubilee year in Italy. So in case you guys don't know what that means, basically Italy is gonna be packed. Okay, it's a religious year, happens I think every 25 years or something like that, and everyone's gonna be going to Italy, myself included, but that's like not really because of me. Anyway, the point is use your common sense. If you think it's obviously during high season, you maybe want some advanced planning, but the point of this video is to tell you that this type of traveling is very liberating. Most of the time, it's about me being able to wake up whenever I want to, and obviously while respecting the hotel's checkout times and everything. On the last day, and why I booked the Bear River Casino on the day of was because the night before when I got to Portland, I actually was so excited, and maybe just like all the adrenaline from me leaving the country with all my stuff and like driving by myself. I didn't really sleep that much, and then only fell asleep at like 5 a.m. and then that's how I slept till 11. On Sunday, I wanted to catch up on my sleep. So I had told Michelle that on Monday, I was like, if I wake up early, I'm down to drive directly from Florence, Oregon, all the way to Fremont, because I think it would be like a 10-hour drive. So I told her my priority was to sleep in as much as I can. And then if not, then I'm gonna get a hotel. So that's how I ended up having to book last minute, because I did end up waking up very close to the checkout time at noon. So by the time that I did wake up, I was like, there's no way I can drive 10 to 12 hours now. Like I'm gonna be driving majority of the time at night, and I wanted to be safe. I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. So that's how I ended up booking my hotel super last minute. Once again, I'm not being smart about this. I don't just like drive up to a motel and just show up. Like I do my research, I use ChatGPT, I use Google, and I make sure I choose a very safe hotel for a solo female that also has EV charging. One of the reasons I also decided to stay at the casino is because I just feel like it would give me like a safer vibe. The casino is also marketed as more like a family getaway. Anyway, that is kind of how I decided to choose. I also have a voice note literally sending to Michelle. I was like, one of the other reasons I wanted to drive to her directly was because some ChatGPT recommendations for hotels were kind of like creepy looking, like not because they are creepy, but because they had the old haunted house vibes in some of these cities. So that's why I was a little bit more reserved in wanting to stay in those places. I just love being able to live in the moment, because I just think that, you know, now having lived planned trips in the past, and then in 2021, I started living this more YOLO, booking a one-way ticket, booking hotels on the fly. I can tell you personally that my enjoyment level for this type of traveling is so much higher. I just feel a lot more free, and I do recommend that if you guys have the chance to try it safely, do not just take this video as your Bible. Please do your research. This is my disclaimer that this is just based on my experience. I'm not telling you guys to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. This is my disclaimer. You still need to do your research. I feel like legally I need to say that. So anyway, that being said, I would love to share with you guys what's been going on in my life. If you guys are into spirituality, or sort of this like the universe plans what is best for you, you guys are gonna love this story. In October, I booked a place for LA for 3 months. The way that I had chosen the date of my move-in date to LA was purely based on numerology. If you guys don't know this about me, I'm extremely spiritual, and I'm also very into numerology. I booked this accommodation for 3 months starting on January 21st, and I did it because, once again, that numerology aligned with my numerology. I packed all my stuff from Toronto into a storage room, shipped my car from Toronto to Vancouver to celebrate Christmas with my family, because my family lives in Vancouver. So in Vancouver, I'm spending the month with my family and gearing up for this road trip. This has still always been part of the plan. San Francisco, which is where I am right now, has also always been part of the plan. The plan initially was to leave around January 6th and then basically drive for the same amount, like let's just say a week, and end up in San Francisco and visit my friends here for a week, because I have a lot of friends in San Francisco. And then from San Francisco, then drive all along the coast again, you know, past Big Sur and all the way down to LA, just in time for January 21st. We all know what is happening with LA right now. So I think on January 7th was the first fire. My trip also got delayed because if you guys have been following along on my vlogs, you will know that I have been dealing with a lot of personal family stuff. When I got home, I realized that they needed a lot of my support in person. I was quite grateful that my trip got delayed, because I was already gonna get delayed anyway. Had nothing to do with the fires, but I was already gonna get delayed anyway. I had time to figure out what I was going to do, because initially I had packed everything to live an LA SoCal lifestyle. As you guys know, SoCal is a lot warmer than NorCal, and I'm so thankful for everything that's happened, because initially, instead of shipping my car from Toronto to Vancouver, I considered shipping my car from Toronto all the way down to LA. So I'm very grateful I didn't do that. I'm also grateful that a lot of the stuff in my family that had been happening, I didn't leave on January 6th. And it got me to leave later because of everything that had happened. I would have packed a lot more differently. The family issues that I had to kind of sort of like go through lasted for another 2 weeks. And therefore I left the date that I did leave. And I was very grateful that I was able to prepare this trip and where I ended up, because I had to cancel my accommodation for LA because there's such a shortage of LA homes right now that I just didn't think it was right of me to come in and take that space away from someone who is a LA native who lost their home. And also I saw a ton of TikToks of people going like, do not come to LA, please, like stop visiting LA, don't move to LA. So I was like, there's just no way that I'm gonna go there. Thankfully, my friend Leisha, she hooked me up with her landlord and now live in the same apartment building as my best friend, which is, I honestly couldn't have imagined for anything better right now. So now I'm here for a few months. I'm escaping the winter in California, and I've been wanting to do this for so long because in the East Coast, a ton of people from Ontario and Quebec, they all escape the winter to go to Florida. That's kind of their destination. And I just wanted to do the same thing, but I just didn't want to live in Florida. I feel like I'm more of a West Coast Californian girl than a East Coast Florida girl. So I wanted to come to the West Coast. And so now I'm here for a few months to escape the winter. And then I'm trying to be a snowbird for the very first time. I can't wait to show you guys my temporary apartment. So stay tuned for the next video, but pretty much that is where I am right now. And I'm very excited to take you guys along in this new chapter. As you guys can see on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts, I have been posting extremely consistently and a lot. So make sure you follow me on those platforms so you can keep up with what's next. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video helps. And if you guys do end up on a solo journey, please let me know and leave a comment down below. Anyway, see you guys in the next video. Bye.